Why is Jonas riding a downhill by himself at a training camp? Why is he anywhere by himself? Why isn't there a team car? So if you watch pro cycling long enough, you've seen interactions with fans and riders. There was the famous Only Opie incident in the Tour a couple of years ago where folks with a big sign caused a massive, dangerous crash. As far back as I can remember, there were scenes of huge, massive crowds on climbs and riders just riding directly into a pack of people who just magically part at exactly the right time. But there have been incidents where someone gets their handlebars hung up on a spectator, or a spectator pushes the rider, or you'll see the motorbike will kind of shove someone out of the way. It gets a little bit argy-bargy there between the riders and between the fans. Crowd control is kind of impossible in these situations. And really, it's a miracle there haven't been worse incidents, or the incidents don't happen more often. And then even outside of the race, we can have conflicts. There were a couple high-profile incidents. Recently, Jonas Vingegaard was trying to evade fans. He tried to get away from these guys on a descent, ended up crashing, hurting himself. He was out for the next race. Not how the Tour de France runner-up wants to start his season. And then just after that, there was another incident. It looked like it was at a team training camp where Tade was talking to someone, some fans interrupted. This is just his side of the story is all we have. He said, wait a minute, and then they were apparently angry. Tade did kind of a long, thoughtful Strava post to sort of address that. There's been lots of debate about it, so I thought this would be a good chance to discuss what should teams do? Should they offer security for riders on training rides? What should riders do? And how should fans behave? I'm gonna do this by going through personal experiences. I've been on all possible sides of this debate. And also, I live in Los Angeles. I've come across lots of celebrities, and I've sort of seen how they interact with fans, with the public, in ways that, well, they're fun stories for one, and also I think it might be constructive, might be applicable to pro cycling. The sponsor for this episode is Function Health. They're a proactive health membership designed to give you control over your health through regular diagnostic blood testing, personalized health insights, and telehealth.
That's why top leaders like Dr. Mark Hyman, Dr. Andrew Huberman, and Dr. Jeremy London are all behind Function Health.
Over 100 biomarkers, from heart to hormones to toxins, inflammation, and stress. I'm a big believer in using blood data to keep me on track, and this is Function Health's approach. So I did my test a few weeks ago. Good news, I'm in the healthy range on almost everything. There are some things to work on. My cholesterol is a little bit high. I don't eat any fast foods. Obviously, I get in my cardio. That's something I'm going to keep an eye on. Heart stuff does run in my family. Might be something I bring up to my doctor. In the meantime, Function Health gave me an action plan, a bunch of foods they recommend. Gooseberry, gotta look that up. Dark chocolate, say no more. There's also a list of supplements. In 6 months, I'll go back and do another round of testing. There's more than 2,000 locations for lab visits. A membership is $365 a year. Just adding up all these tests alone would be like 10 grand. So use my link to check out Function Health. The first 1,000 users will get a $25 credit towards their membership. Okay, first, I'm just gonna tell some stories of celebrities that I've seen in public and how they interacted with the public. One, Arnold Schwarzenegger. He has breakfast pretty much every day at this hotel that they sponsored me last year. I spent a lot of nights there, and I'd see him at breakfast all the time. And he's not like hiding from anyone about it. He rides down from his house, goes to the gym every morning, rides back Main Street, Santa Monica, full Arnold. He doesn't wear a helmet normally. Very recognizable, very visible. The locals sort of love it. When he's at the hotel, he's not in a private room, but he does have a bunch of dudes around. I think when he arrives at the hotel on his e-bike, a lot of his gym buddies show up. It doesn't look like he's hiring like bodyguards or security, but that is how they function. These are beefy Jubes who just came from the gym. And at all times, there's always someone between him and the public. I knew that my brother-in-law would lose his mind if I could get a selfie with Arnold and we're flexing our bicep or something, and I'm sitting at breakfast one table away, just like waiting for my chance to interact. But he's talking to his buddies, and then he leaves back on his e-bike. So after a few breakfasts where I had no opportunity, at some point I just got up to the table. Hey, Arnold, you mind if I take a picture? And like one of his buddies just sort of physically got in the way. Arnold didn't even have to say no to me or even look me in the eye or even necessarily know I was there. He said, guys, take care of that. I don't think he paid those dudes. I'm guessing that he just pays for their breakfast every day on the way back to the gym. They're his training buddies. And, you know, breakfast for two there, I think I spent like $150 just with, not even with mimosas or anything. So he's looking at probably $1,000 breakfast every day. So they're taken care of. They're compensated for their role. And really, I didn't have anything to get mad about. So that's a guy who's been A-list famous for like 40 years. He just knows how to do it. Okay, another one. I'm not going to say the name on this. It doesn't really matter. And I don't want to get sued by, you know, crazy celebrities. This was like my first couple days visiting Los Angeles. I wasn't even living here yet. but I was riding around in Hollywood. I was exploring, and I was at Sunset and Highland. This is the epicenter of Hollywood. So we're like a couple blocks from Ripley's Believe It or Not, the Walk of Fame, the Chinese Theater, all that stuff. People fly from all over the world to walk around here, and you never see celebrities on Hollywood Boulevard. They'd be insane to go that way, except I see at the light pull up, it is a bright red convertible, top down, with A, double A, triple A, however any A's you could possibly have, famous female starlet in it. She had her hair done, she had her glasses on, and it was full her in the most recognizable, attention-getting way in the world. And people, of course, were looking. People were staring like, oh my God, and taking pictures. And she looked around just like she was so annoyed. And I was sitting there, I was like, you came here on purpose. You could have taken Fountain, you could have taken the 101, you could have closed the top of the convertible. Like, you came here in order to be recognized, and then had the reaction of, you people are disgusting and shameful for wanting to look at me. Everyone was like, oh, she's crazy. That's how not to do it, I guess. Okay, a couple more celebrities. A buddy of mine is a drummer. He toured with Seal for a long time, and they'd be at the airport, and maybe Seal's not in the lounge. He's just hanging out with his band. And at some point he was sitting there, and there was a woman like kind of discreetly trying to take a photo like I might have of Arnold at the breakfast area. And it was just sort of walking by, and at some point Seal just looked at me and was like, just take the picture, love. You know, like, that's what she wants. Just let her have it. And I don't know if he put his arm around her or did the selfie or whatever, but just like, just smile, take the picture, and then leave. Just move on. You don't have to try and be shy. They're human beings, ultimately. Okay, next, so this is going to be a bridge celebrity to the cycling world. So Reggie Miller, he is a celebrity in his own right. He was a Hall of Fame NBA player. He's also 6'7", which is pretty hard to hide in public. He's a very visible dude. He hasn't aged a bit since his pro career. That's sort of brutal. Reggie lives not far from me, and he's a real dude. He rides his bike all the time. I see him on the road. At some point, I forget how we first met, probably at Peddler's Fork. He hangs out there a lot. So we chatted. I remember when we first got Creature, I went by Peddler's Fork, and when I were actually looking at houses in this neighborhood where we ended up buying, and I have a photo of Reggie holding just a baby Creature that makes me really happy. So a couple years into it, I've chatted with him many times. We've run into each other a lot. He's come to my Fondo and showed up a couple times. And one thing that's nice, at the Fondo, he always takes pictures with everyone. Every bike event he goes to, everyone wants a picture with Reggie, and I've never seen him say no. And one day, it was like the 60th time I've run into him and chatted with him in the canyons, and we were about to split off, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, man, Reggie's cool, but I'm not going to ask for a picture. I've got like 10 pictures with Reggie from the events. I've done it before. I'm just going to play it cool and flip it and move on. And as I'm splitting off, he was like, well, wait a minute, we got to get a picture. And my thought was like, that was so generous of him, because he knows I want the picture, but he decided to make it his idea, to not make it weird for me. And then he asked me to send it to him and put his Instagram story. That's class. You know, the reason that he's famous is because he has fans. The reason his success, why he gets to do what he wants to do, is the mass public, the people who like him. And ultimately, like, for every negative fan interaction, it's still a fan. No matter how many of them come up or what mood you're in, like, how bad could it possibly be to engage with someone who likes you? Okay, now we'll go to cyclists. We'll start with me on a personal note, which is many, many tiers below the top level of fame and the top level of pro cycling fame. But I have experienced it enough to at least have, I think, a relevant opinion. I've had folks catch up to me on the road, or I've cut up to them, and they make small talk. And I've learned from Reggie, just like, end it with, hey, we got to get a picture. One thing that makes these interactions on the road a little bit tricky, a little bit more dangerous than an Arnold type situation, is that, well, you're out somewhere exposed. You're out among cars, you're in traffic, and you don't know the skill of this stranger who is trying to talk to you. I don't want to necessarily go down. And I think this is maybe what Jonas was dealing with. He doesn't want to ride downhill next to a bunch of amateurs who could crash him. So the trick there, I would say, instead of trying to drop them, my move would be, hey, let's grab a picture at the top or wherever they happen to catch me, put a foot down, give them an advantage, and then go. I've had a few where we chatted, and I pulled over to take a pee or take a phone call, just something to like politely get out of the way without saying, all right, now scram fans who are the reason that I make $4 million a year. I'm talking about Jonas there, not me. I also have had moments that were just completely insane. The entire week at the Tour of San Luis, I was leading this race in Argentina. I remember like having to push through massive crowds of people who just wanted to touch me, take a selfie, take a water bottle, anything. And I remember thinking at the time, just like, holy crap, is this what it's like to be Ringo every day? Another one that sticks out in my experience was Tour of Colorado 2015. right before, I forget which stage, my mom had called and I found out that my dad's cancer was terminal. He was going to make it another couple months, but I remember like going through that stage and thinking I'll finish the stage race and I'll go home. And then halfway through, I was like, this is pointless. I'm just going to drop out and ride to the team bus and take the next flight back to Atlanta. And got to the team bus and I was just going to the back and just bawling my eyes out just by myself. Eventually the team owner came. His dad had just passed away or was about to. We were kind of in a similar boat and kind of like got a hug, cried on each other's shoulders right outside the bus. As I was talking to him and figuring out how I was going to get home, a couple people came up and they wanted me to sign a book. I remember just like, sure, absolutely. And I just took the book and smiled and took a selfie and moved on. They don't know what situation I'm in. What are they actually asking for? And can I provide it? And it wasn't that hard. You've just ultimately got to be generous to the fans, to the people who put you there. Okay, if you're Tade, if you're Jonas, it's a much different story. They're getting that every day wherever they train. Now, here's part of the thing. If you're doing a training camp, if you're in Calpe, if you're in Tenerife, if you're in one of the hotbeds of cycling training in a certain time of year, you just have to realize that's going to happen. And I think that might be part of why, like Chris Froome, Geraint Thomas, they used to come out here to train. They'd live in Palisades somewhere and ride in the Malibu canyons, where even there, like they'd get fanboy once in a while, but it's just more remote. It's more spread out. It's not as concentrated. And you don't have as many Europeans out here who might recognize you. Really, you got to think, pro cyclists, yes, Tade's famous, but he could walk down Rodeo Drive and be recognized exactly 0 times. You can live in Girona, Spain, and probably not be bothered by the tourists who come here all the time. It's big enough. Now, you can't go to La Fabrica for coffee. There you're going to be in trouble. You know, Pidcock went to Chile in the off season. If you want to get away from that hustle and bustle, it's attainable. It's a flight, but these guys can do it. Yes, fans should give celebrities space. They should respect you, but you also just can't force them to. You can't yell at the internet. You can't yell at the public and hope it works. The reality is they're going to be there. They're going to want their selfies. This is the only time this guy is going to get a chance to take a picture with Tade, and he doesn't want to wait 2 minutes. He's going to tap him on the shoulder. He's going to be a dick. So I think Tade handled that interaction pretty well. If someone's a jerk, you can kind of just call him out for it. Also, it's just like any race in Europe. There's a lot of collectors out there. They want water bottles from each team. I don't know if they sell them or if they just have collections, but you finish a stage and as soon as you get to the finish line, they're just bidon, bidon. And say I just got a recovery drink and I'm still working on it. They're going to try and grab it out of your hand. So you could push your way through a crowd of people and say, no, I'm still drinking this. No, I'm still drinking this. Or the only pragmatic way to do it is you put a foot down, you slam it, and you get rid of it as fast as you can. For as long as you have that water bottle, someone's going to be yelling at you, begging for it. So you could get mad about it, or you could just realize this is the situation. I got to get rid of this as fast as I can. But if someone's being a jerk, if they're grabbing it out of your hand, if they're grabbing it out of your bottle cage, if you're trying to hand it to a child and some old guy grabs it out of the way, don't be afraid to tell them they're being a dick. If someone's being a dick, hey, just holler at them and take it back. You can stand up for yourself. You're a human being also. It's worth pointing out, I've also approached this as a fan. We used to host the Cookie Corner during the Tour of California. We had a couple on Gibraltar, a couple on Mount Baldy. So there's fans who wrote up, here's how it works. Here's the process if you're a fan trying to watch a race in person. You don't realize this if you're racing in the pack, but it's a long day for the guy who wants to come watch. They close the road. You've got to get up there early. You've got to ride your bike up Mount Baldy. That's not easy. Then you get somewhere and you're waiting hours for someone to come by. You're trying to watch. Maybe there's no self-service. You don't know what's going on in the race. You're getting updates from God knows where. And then you kind of see the helicopters coming. You see the different team cars coming. You see the police. There's a big buildup. They really get you real frothy. And finally, when the riders come, you are so excited. You are so pent up. You've been waiting for so long that it's hard to not run alongside them. It's hard to not scream. It's hard to just let them go by. And I would always do my best to sort of police the situation at Cookie Corner. They would set up and I'd be like, all right, everyone make sure, let the first riders go through unencumbered. Don't bother them at all. Like, stand back. Let's not harass the people who are really racing. Let's not get us on TV for something terrible. So once you get through the first guys, once you get through the chase group, the guys who are still racing for a stage result, the next packs that come through, well, a lot of them would be my friends. They'd want to do wheelies. They'd want to engage with the crowd. They were looking forward to this, the last 5K. The riders were looking to, so like, don't be a jerk. Don't shove them off the bike. But they're happy to toss a water bottle. Guys would ride no hand. They didn't sign autographs. They'd take cookies. It was a blast. That's part of it. So like, kind of cue off of the riders how much they want to engage with you, but you don't have to be afraid of them. And that's the part, like, you can wait for that in pretty much every race, later on in the race. That group is coming. There were a couple of funny clips from Cookie Corner over the years. One, Peter Sagan did a wheelie through the whole thing, just gave the fans what they wanted. It was incredible. There's always a lot of debate of security at races, safety at races. I remember that thing a few years ago. Someone was like doing doorbell ditch on Mathieu van der Poel's hotel room at World Championships. I believe he got arrested for assault. Like, he finally caught the person who was doing it. I think it was a woman. And like, they were keeping him up all night before World Championships. I want to say he like shook him by the shoulders. I don't know what you're supposed to do other than they shouldn't have access to Mathieu van der Poel's room. They shouldn't know what hotel he's in. Back in the day, they would just have like a room list taped to the elevator. By the end of my era, they were already doing like a WhatsApp group to know your room list. But before that, it was just straight up public. And I guess you could just walk into the hotel and, which of the, let me go knock on their door. It seems that someone took care of that. But I think it's the hotel's responsibility. But it's a funny thing where the teams and the riders and even the fans have this expectation of race security, of rider security, that, hey, they should do better crowd control. Hey, they shouldn't let someone jump over the barriers in the last 3K. But in the meantime, they fail to protect the riders at their own training camps. In the example of the Tadej and the Jonas, on the one hand, no, those guys shouldn't be harassing Jonas on a downhill. On the other hand, why is Jonas riding a downhill by himself at a training camp? Why is he anywhere by himself? Why isn't there a team car? Why doesn't he have a buddy? You just kind of need, like Schwarzenegger had his kind of buffer dudes. Jonas, kind of a little bit compared to Tadej, a little bit antisocial. Actually, a better way to put it, he's introverted. I think he probably just likes to ride by himself, likes to put his earbuds in. But have a guy next to you, his earbuds go in, and that's just, cost of doing business, man. You just got to do that. There's YouTubers that you haven't heard of who hire bodyguards. There's riders. It's very common practice in Colombia, and kind of for security, but more just for logistics. When I would ride down there would just be someone who you pay 20, 40 bucks to follow you in a scooter all day. They've got a pump in there. They've got your nutrition. Whatever they're paying Jonas, Tadej, carve a little bit out to have that dude. So Jonas is never riding alone. So there's someone there to kind of nudge those dudes out of the way or just get in between them to provide that safety. I don't think it's reasonable for teams and riders to expect safety from the races if they don't care enough to cough it up on their own time. I'm guessing that's the direction it'll go. So fans, realize that pros are people. You have to respect them. They got stuff to do. They don't have all day to sign the things for everybody. And you're really a fan if you want something from them. But if you want the photo, be patient, be respectful, be a human being. Pros, like any celebrity, you just got to do the best you can to give the people what they want. Remember, that's why you're there. And teams, these are your assets. Like, what did it cost Beesman Elisa Bike to have Jonas out for a certain race? What did it cost him to really set back his season, even if it's a little bit, it's early on? It's not going to affect his Tour de France, but it all kind of is. Make that extra investment, have the security, have the team car with him. Just don't let that dude ride alone. All right, so that's the news on that. It was Sharon Stone. That was the one. That was the one in Hollywood. For anyone who made it this far down, that'll be your reward. It was Sharon Stone. All right. See ya. Thank you.